So this is part 2 of this tutorial. If you want to find out how to do the sunset sky and the colours, please look in the description and I'll put a link to the first tutorial in there. What I'm going to do now is progress down by doing some distant headland. So the sky's nice and dry, and I'm going to come on just with a little bit of water and around number 6. And using the purpley grey that I've mixed up, come in and create some distant headland here. So I'm dropping that colour in at the top and letting it run down. I quite like leaving a little bit of light from the sky just underneath. Create a really nice shape at the top. You can see the tip of your brush, you can see where it's going. Create a really nice shape and leave that little bit of light showing at the bottom. I've then got a tea light. It's a tea light that's very good for just stroking to catch the surface of the paper and give some wax resist. So I'm going to come on gently using the flat edge just towards the front, not too much pressure. It is always a little bit hit and miss when you do something like this, but when it works wonderfully. And just catching the surface of the paper. Then I'm going to bring on a little bit of water. I'm going to be very careful to leave a fine dry line in between what I've just done, because that's still wet, and what I'm doing now, so that they don't blend together. You can dry it if you want to dry it as well. Picking up around number 10, I'm going to come in to some of my sky colours. So the first being the Gamboge yellow. And we're going to reflect some of those colours from the sky into the water. Rinse my brush off, dab it off on some kitchen towel, come into the orange. What you'll notice is I am stroking horizontally now. So I was doing a circular motion in the sky. I now want it to feel like it's a flat surface, so I'm stroking horizontally. You can start to see some of that wax resist working. This is a little bit of rose I'm going to dab in. And a little bit of cobalt blue. Bring that through. Some of the blue you can bring through a little bit further up as well. So that really starts to blend. I'm going to come into the darker purpley colour. Start to get some of that in further down. I'm going to swap to a 1 centimetre flat. Make sure that it's nice and dry, but dip into the purpley colour. And I can start to do some horizontal ripples. So this is just blending through with the purple. You're going to get a really nice effect. A bit further up, that's all good. It's reflecting the colour from the distant land in there. Don't eliminate everything you've got there. You want this lovely wax resist to show as highlights. And actually that very, very fine white line gives a lovely glistening effect on the horizon. If it goes too far, you can just dry this brush off and just dab a little bit out if you want a little bit to be lighter. You can take some light out just with a dry brush, just dabbing. Get a really nice glistening effect as well. A bit here. Gives a nice soft effect. Now, if you want to create a crashing wave, you can actually break the rules of watercolour to create one in there, but it's waiting for the right point to do it. So the paper has to be nearly dry. And what I'm doing is I've loaded up a brush with water. And so I'm hoping there's going to be an area this side that's nearly dry. This is still quite wet. I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. So I'm just going to dab in with a bit of water. What you're going to get is an explosion which is called a run back or a cauliflower, and we're going to build this into be a breaking or crashing wave. Always use a small brush when you first try this, because a bigger brush has more water and you'll have a very, very big wave, but you can see how it's lifting the paint and pushing it out, and then we're going to use that to work that into a lovely wave coming in. Just pop a little bit more here. So I'm tapering it out. Okay, I'm going to dry this off. It's nice and dry. So what I've got now is a watermark or a cauliflower or a run back. It's called lots of different things, that's creating the start of a crashing wave, and I want to emphasize that now to bring that out. So I'm going to use the grey, which is the purpley grey. We're still on the same colours, and I'm going to start by coming in underneath. So I'm following the shape of the run back. I'm just picking out a darker edge. If I don't like some of the shape, I'm just going to come over it. Or as it goes into the distance, I don't want it to be as crashing, I can do that. I've put the paint on with a round number 6. I'm going to apply a little bit of water with a round number 10. So I'm softening in, so I don't want too much water on there. I'm going to take a little bit off on my fingers. I'm touching the paint, I'm pushing the brush down so the paint has somewhere wet to flow. I'm not actually moving the paint. I've got a whole video on how to do softening in my techniques section if you want to look at that. You can see there now I've got the start of a crashing wave. If I then come above, I'm going to come above in a different colour. So I'm going to choose the orange, because it seems to be orange that's mainly been pulled, and start to create the crashing wave this side. So again, I'm following that run back edge, but I can come over. The importance with softening in is you keep the paint nice and wet, so you've got time to come back and soften that edge in. Just going to dab a little bit of that off because there is a lot of paint there. Again, my round number 10. Just taking a little bit of water off with my fingers, so squeezing it. And then I've got to come from this top edge because I'm touching the paint, but I'm giving it somewhere to flow. So I'm not moving that paint. And I'm going to come along and blend that in. Blend that side as well. Then we need some bits of shadow within that crashing wave. So if I just pull a few dabby bits of the orange that's still on my brush and then dab in a little bit with some water, you start to get a little bit of shadow that's flowing around. You can take a little bit of the purple in as well if you want to. A little bit too much water on there. I'm just lifting it off with a damp brush. I never like to tailor these videos too much because these things happen all the time. Even as an experienced painter, I think you need to see how I fix them. So that's flowed quite quickly and filled the area. So what I'm doing is lifting it back out with a dry damp brush. I'm just going to leave that a second, just let it settle because it's a bit too wet. And I've got a flat, dipped in a little bit of water because I don't want this colour to be too strong, and I've come into the purpley colour. What I'm going to do is now accentuate some ripples on the water. So I've already got the wax resist. I'm now adding a few ripples, just stroking along horizontally. And do a few in the distance. Can bring a few over that line that we lifted. Do a few little wiggles. So if you hold the brush horizontally, wiggle downwards, you get a few little ripples like that. Where we've softened in here, we need to accentuate that curve of the wave coming in. So we're going to just curve that a little bit. And we can ripple behind. Ripple through that softening in. I'm just going to dry this off and then I'm going to do a little bit more definition on that crashing wave. Okay, so that's dried now, so what I'm going to do is come in with a little bit of this purpley grey again and just define little bits. So this is my round number 6 and I'm touching on the underside of places, varying with pressure. I don't want it to be too strong in places, especially as you're going into the distance, but I want it to have a little bit more definition. I'm also going to do the same above. So I've gone in with orange and it's worked to an extent, but I don't think it's defined enough for me to see. So if I do a little bit of this, it will help to define that crashing wave. So it just shows you that things do go unexpected. This is the beauty of watercolour, and it's learning how to make it work. I'll just quickly rinse my brush off. I'm using my round number 6, and again I'm just going to soften in. So this is much more controlled softening in. I don't want the paint to flow as far. And that's just helping to define that crashing wave. With a tiny little bit of the purple now, a little bit waterier, I can pop in a few little bits of shadow. And we're going to leave those dry. Just so I'm not doing too much. If you want them to look varied when you've dabbed these in, then if you get a little bit of kitchen towel, just dab them off a tiny bit. They'll give a good variation. It's not often a dab, but there's certain things, there's snowy footprints and sandy footprints, it's good to dab as well. And I'm going to pop another line coming here and another one straight behind. That really defines that wave crashing in. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've got plenty more tutorials if you want to look at my channel. Thank you.